Hello, good evening, and welcome to Lynne Franks in Conversation with Extraordinary Women. And what a fantastic evening we've got ahead of us. I am so excited and thrilled to have probably the three actually, most expert women on the menopause, probably in the world, actually, I will say. Not that I'm trying to exaggerate, but I think so. So welcome to those who are listening, either here in Zoom or on our other StreamYard different platforms. And I'm so excited to have you here. And I'm so excited to have my guest here. So first of all, the beautiful Meg Mathews, whose book has turned into the best-selling book in the country right now on any level, I think, whether it's women's health, menopause, and it's just out in the States. It's called The New Hot, Taking on the Menopause with Attitude and Style, which is absolutely perfect. So I'm going to come back to Meg in a minute, and we're going to go through the book a little way. And I'm delighted to welcome Caroline Harris here, who has put together this amazing book, Emboldened, which is menopause conversations we all need to have. And one of her extraordinary, fantastic writers in this book is Dr. Padmini Murthy, who is up on my screen on the top left hand, who is coming from New York to speak to us, who is probably, I would say, one of the absolute top women's health experts in the world. So we've got a very global perspective about what's happening for women in the world with the menopause from Minnie. And we're going to be talking to Meg about her personal story and what she's done to open up the conversation on the menopause in the UK. So welcome. And Caroline, you just before I know we talked about you really coming in to just sort of say hi. And also the fact that you interviewed women from all around the world and obviously had an extraordinary response. Everybody's agreed to do it. Wonderful quotes from Kirsty Walk and Gillian Anderson, all sorts of, Jennifer Nadel, rather, Gillian, who wrote the book with Gillian Anderson, and all sorts of brilliant scientists, doctors. So before we go into me talking to Meg and Minnie, is there anything you want to say about the whole experience for you? Because you did talk a little bit about your own personal experience on your menopause at the beginning.
Definitely. So I suppose it was my own experience of menopause, as you know, with many of us, that kind of provided the impetus to do the book. And I really felt that I wanted to hear from lots of different people all over the world, and to help kind of broaden the menopause conversation globally. So, you know, we've got women in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, we've got nurses from Australia, we've got doctors from Italy, from the Medical Women's International Association. So many different people, and one of the things that really struck me is how you can have people on opposite sides of the world who have very similar experiences and have that kind of connection and link. And then you can have people where within their own family they have different experiences. So it's that menopause is unique as well to each of us. But it's just been incredible, kind of building up this network of people, meeting people like Padmini and yourself, you know.
Oh yes, I forgot to mention I'm in both these books, actually. I forgot. And yes, I read my own chapter today as well.
Yeah. So it's just been incredible, and I think especially during this time of COVID, to link up with people across the world and, you know, shared experiences, not just about menopause, but, you know, asking how are you doing, and, you know, that's been one of the amazing things.
And this is carrying on in terms of being conferences, conversations all around the world.
Yeah, we've got panel conversations with lots of our contributors. So next week, so if people go on to Eventbrite and look for Flint Books, we've got conversations on menopause and breaking global taboos, menopause and creativity, menopause and health. And then I'm going to be speaking at another event that Padmini has helped to organise as well. So it's kind of just really
take it off,
building up these amazing.
That's links. Amazing. So thank you so much. So do you want to stay in on the conversation, or would you like to come?
Well, I'll mute myself for now, but I'm really looking forward to
fantastic.
What Meg has to say.
Yeah, me too. So let's come to Meg. So Meg, why has the menopause become so fashionable? I mean, I'm 20 years ago with my menopause, so for me it's like, wow, suddenly everybody's having their menopause.
Yeah, I don't think everyone everyone is just having their menopause now, are they?
No.
It was just, I don't know, it was something, because I had such a bad menopause, and it was a lot of mental health issues that were connected to me. So I basically was like, my anxiety, I was overwhelmed with life. I just didn't seem to be able to cope. And not anywhere in my life, or my gran or my mum or anyone had told me about this could happen to me. So when it happened to me, I really didn't put it together with the menopause. The menopause to me was, you didn't have a period and you had a hot flush. That was it. There was nothing to do with all this sort of mental prison. I was all of a sudden couldn't leave the house, and my life was getting smaller and smaller. And for someone like me, who was so outgoing and was just like doing this and doing that, all of a sudden,
You were the party girl, let's face it. You were London's
and I would
top
just
party
get on
girl.
any flight, do anything. All of a sudden, I was just like, I'd get up in the morning. I didn't really want to get dressed. I would, my daughter would go to school in an Uber because I couldn't drive her. My partner would go to work. And I would just get back into bed without telling anyone, and then I would just like sort of get up, put my workout gear on, come downstairs, set the alarm for 4. They would all come back, and I'd just pretend. They say, "How was your day?" And I'd go, "Yeah, really busy, did this and that." No one actually questioned me, of course they don't. They're just like, "Oh, okay." But really, I just noticed that everything was, I was just getting smaller and smaller. My life was just like becoming like so like not me, and I didn't understand. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor gave me antidepressants and then antidepressants, and they didn't work, and then I was just thinking, well, I lived this very colourful 90s, if everyone doesn't know.
I think they do.
Which it was very colourful 80s and 90s. So, and then my mum used to always say to me, "This is always going to catch up with you." Then all of a sudden I started thinking, "Oh my God, this is catching up with me. I've burnt every brain cell out. My body is aching. The night sweats is everything, all the rubbish coming out. You know, all this stuff was going through my head, but nothing in my whole thinking was the word perimenopause, menopause, post-menopause, anything. And so I was just like, why? What is going on? Then eventually, as I'm a recovering alcoholic, I went to an AA meeting, and as I left the AA meeting going, if this is what life's about, I might as well have a drink, because if this is what, I'm 50, nearly 49, and this is it. And my mum had passed away, so I had my dad to look after. My daughter was doing her GCSEs. I was sandwiched in this, like, trying to look after everybody, no time for myself, thinking, is this what life is really about? And when I left the meeting, a lady tapped me on the shoulder and went to me, "I think you're going through the menopause." And I just sort of thought, "Oh, cheeky." But as she did that, I had this image of the Golden Girls. That is my image of the menopause. It's the Golden Girls. It's my grandma with her grey rings, and she's with her little stick, and she's stooped over. It wasn't me, Miss like Fitness 49 on Instagram doing 40 press ups. Yes, I am super fit. You know, this wasn't what I expected the menopause to be, and it was totally all of that. I was diagnosed with osteoporosis at the age of 49, completely fully in menopause because I had the Marina coil. I had not had a period, but I had not noticed. So by the age of 49, I was fully going through, out of 34 symptoms, probably 28. And this is the reason that I wrote the book, started the website, started the Insta Live, Instagram, was because I could not believe that me thinking that I was just a woman of the world, knew everything about fashion, music, everything. did not have a clue about one single thing about perimenopause or menopause. And then the facts that I'm sure that we can leave to the doctors and the other people was that perimenopause can last for 10 to 15 years. And the more I learned, I just was just like, I don't want anyone else to have to suffer what I went through.
Which is brilliant. So I'm going to come on in a minute. We're going to talk to Minnie now, but I want to come back to you to talk about the different things that you tried, which is just about everything. So anyway, let's move to Minnie. So we're going to talk a little bit about a different subject here, because your chapter in Emboldened is very much about the global perspective of women. And the first question that I want to ask is, why is the menopause a human rights issue?
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Meg. It's great to be on the panel. And hi, everybody from this side of the pond. I'm from New York. And Caroline, thank you so much for bringing us all together. And it is definitely a human rights issue. It's 25 years, Lynn, since the Beijing Declaration.
I was there.
Okay, thank you. And I have attended every single Beijing except the one in 1995. We talk about things for women. Like, for example, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You have science which says, go for your mammogram. But nobody wants to talk about the other M, which is menopause.
Did you know it's World Menopause Day on Sunday?
Yes, it is. So it's very timely we're having this conversation. So
planned that way.
It's a human rights issue is because we don't talk about it. It's very much a part of women's health, her sexual and reproductive health. So it's like, oh, you can't talk about menopause, because if you talk about menopause, you're like a fallen woman. Oh, it's a woman thing. And we don't pay enough attention, because if a man really went through everything which we go through as women for menopause, we wouldn't have even been having this conversation. The reason I say it is because it doesn't matter that I am Asian American, you ladies are British, we have people called in maybe hopefully from different parts. Everybody goes through this. It's a normal part. But why is it a human rights issue? Not that I'm trying to evade your question, Lynn. It's because it is pushed to the bottom. It's not paid attention to in policies everywhere, in work-related policies. For example, we have stations, feeding stations, where nursing mothers can feed their children. But why don't we have stations? We should, or even if they're so far and few, where women can go cool off when they have a hot flash. So it's a human rights issue, and it's discriminated because it's gender. We need to focus on it. And like you are doing, and so many others, it needs to be brought out of the closet. Ladies and gentlemen, it's high time menopause comes out of the closet. Thank you.
Well, I think that's very much what Meg's doing. But I just want to bring up some figures I got from your chapter that we talked about before. So these are pre-COVID figures, in fact. And according to research done, there are 14 million lost working days a year from women in the UK, which works out at about £7.3 million worth of lost labour. And the World Bank estimates there's going to be 1.2 billion women going through the menopause by 2030. So we were talking about this before because, of course, lost working days pre-COVID was that women with the menopause were having a hard day, hadn't slept all night, didn't want to go to work, didn't have a cooling station, as you suggest, to pop into, can now work and are now working from home. So I'm assuming that even if they're having a rough day, they can still work for some of the time and still get a sleep in. And actually, it's pre-COVID in a way, and we said this, didn't we, earlier, it's actually very helpful, not post-COVID rather, with all the horrors of it, is actually very helpful for menopausal women. So anyway, what do you think about that, Meg? Because there's all the women that used to...
I'm just looking at something here. Okay, so I could just be speaking to some people that were part of the NHS, and I did a big talk a couple of days ago, and no one has even picked up on of the women working in PPI and going through the menopause.
Yeah.
And here we have a staggering 51% of the workforce are female between the ages of 40 and 65.
Wow.
Being in the NHS to work on the front line, our main nurses and sisters and doctors, and they're in PPI and also going through the menopause. But nobody's thought of that. That has just come out now. No one has even given them any thought. So, you know, you're having a hot flash, you're having a bit of anxiety, you're feeling overwhelmed. And you're also having to be on the front line. And this is 51% of our workers in the UK today and in COVID.
That is a huge, huge story.
But no one has even picked up on that.
No,
yet.
that is enormous. That's absolutely enormous. Maybe we should put that out fast. And of
Yeah,
course, they're
that's what
wearing.
I mean. That's
Yes.
why I just got my phone out, because I just remembered the lady saying it to me, and I just wanted to get the actual figures right. Because if we think about those women, you know, they're trained nurse and they've been there for years. They're, you know, at the moment we have COVID, but even without COVID, but we have COVID now, so, you know, and having to be in all that plastic and all the gloves and having a hot flush. But without these nurses and these sisters and these doctors that are the qualified and training, I mean, you know, what did I say it was? Because my memory's terrible.
51%.
51%. Yeah. So why was it that 51%? You know, are just like, oh my God.
I'm having a bad day. I can't go to work today.
And do another 12 hours today.
Yeah.
And you'll have that, I'm sure, in New York as well.
Yeah, so just to jump into what you said, and then to answer you, yes, the way it is if you're a physician or a nurse or anybody who's in healthcare, you have to wear your mask, and you have a hot flash, you don't know what to do, because you look like really an astronaut with your, your plastic shield and everything, especially if you're doing surgery. Now, that is really hard, because you put, as a healthcare provider, when you take the oath, you put your patient's needs before you. But we are human beings too. And if you have a hot flash, you can't even rip off your mask. Now, the other advantage for people who are working from home, like if you have a hot flash, you can just take a shower and come back. And you know what? Even in the midst of winter, I remember, I used to put the AC on in my car when I was driving to work. So what I'm trying to say, the advantage is, if we don't want to, we can turn off our camera. So people won't even know if you're sitting in your jammies because you're having a hot flash or a t-shirt. So that way it's an advantage for women. But overall, just to add on to what Meg said, Meg, you talked about what's happening in the UK, which is pretty much the same. And can you imagine the other people? Like I was just seeing on TV this morning, ladies, it's so sad that the street vendors, they are now hawking masks to make money, especially women. That's why it comes back to a gender issue. If they have a hot flash, what do? They don't even know about this. And I'm sure, Lynne, knowing you, you're such a great interviewer. You're putting, asking what happens to others. So definitely, if we have another chapter or something added to it, we will look at post-COVID. And before I hand it over to you for your next question, I would also like to say it's an issue of violence. We talk about gender-based violence, so definitely not addressing menopause for women all across. It doesn't matter what ethnicity, what social status, where you belong to. It's definitely also when you're not paying attention to her, when she does not have the support she needs. It is also, the neglect also is definitely a gender-based violence, is discrimination. So coming back, you see how the whole thing comes up to it's a human rights issue, because really addressing menopause is like building a three-dimensional puzzle. It needs to be multifactorial.
Yeah, so that I was advising a very large, one of the world's biggest fast food companies quite a few years ago, probably about 12 years ago, about women's leadership. And I started working with the top women leaders in the company who were aged around about 45 to 55, who were very high up in what was a very male environment. And we had 2 or 3 meetings where they started to relax more and turn their, what were blackberries, that's how long ago it was, off. And they started opening up, and they started eventually talking about the menopause. It took a long time to get there. But when they started talking about why the days they had, I mean, it was a very safe space where they could share, because that's what I do. I create these women's spaces where women feel that they can be themselves. And it was incredible what came out, how it was affecting them, how the menopause was affecting them at the work, and they couldn't talk about it. And to a degree, I think in the corporate world, that's still the same. I don't think it's changed tremendously. I think that women have to be better than men to succeed in the corporate world. That's how it's always been. Again, this was all pre-COVID, and have to be perfect health-wise and every otherwise. So it's going to be, again, interesting now as so many are working from home. I mean, I wonder how it affects the women in Parliament, women in Westminster as well, women in all those male environments where they can't say, you know what, guys, I'm having a really bad menopause. I've seen some of the younger MPs are bringing their babies to work now, which is a great breakthrough. But actually for the older women to say, I'm having a really bad day today, I've got to go and, you know, have a rest, is not going down well. But let's hope it changes. I mean, Meg, you've been talking on, as I was saying to you earlier, just about every TV show. You've been in lots of the magazines. It is extraordinary. There is this amazing interest now, and I can see other celebrities. There seem to be a lot of very high profile women here and the States who are around about 50. That's why I assume, and very independent women who've got a voice, like Davina McCall was on the other day talking about the menopause. I mean, there's a lot of books out right now, and a lot of people have very much been following in your footsteps of being so honest about your own life. And again, when I was reading your book today, I read of all the different things you tried, because you went the natural way. You talked about the Hawaiian shaman that was on the phone to you. I mean, it's not, I'll tell you about my menopause again in a minute. I'm not laughing at it. I was there. I'm doing the same stuff. So what
I wanted to do you. I wanted to be in Malibu and do mine through.
I was very lucky to be in LA when I had my menopause, out on the beach every day, cycling every day, no alcohol, drinking water, because that was my lifestyle at that point. And I didn't even realize I'd had such a terrible perimenopause back in England, where I'd had fibroids and very heavy bleeding for quite a few years. So for me, it was the menopause, like such a relief. It was like, yes, thank you. All's changed now, and just living a healthy life. Yeah. So yeah, it was a great place to be. But you tried everything, and you've ended up going on a full circle. You talk a lot in the book about supplements. You've got your own supplements you sell anyway. You've got your own.
I ended up bringing out my own range of products. I basically was like looking for everything that I needed and I wanted, and I walked around certain chemists, and I couldn't find an intimate wash which didn't say some name that I sort of basically would think, oh, that means that you can I say it? Of course I can say it here. I basically looked at different vaginal intimate washes, and to me, all my life, they said to me that meant that you had a smelly vagina, okay? It didn't tell me about having a pH balance. I never knew my whole life growing up that it was about having a pH balance. So basically at the age of 49, all of a sudden I learned, this expensive shower gel that I've been paying, 50, 60 pounds for, you can't use that in certain places. So I didn't know this. Now, why didn't I know this? Why was I never told this? Because I saw all these intimate washes, but to me, that's what it meant. But no one had ever told me, or maybe I hadn't asked, but why hadn't it been taught to me that we need to wash our vaginas with a pH balance of, even when you're fertile, should be even lower, so it should be about 2 point something, and then through the menopause should be about 3.5, and then as we go on, normally shower gel and everything is 4.9. Now, I wasn't told any of this, so it was just having to learn all this at 49, and I'm thinking, why was I never told? Why wasn't I at school told this? Or, my mum told me this. It wasn't because me and my mum, we had a good relationship, but it just never seemed to come into the conversation.
Well, my mother used to call it the change. It was all about the change, and don't talk to mummy when she's having a bad moment in the change, because she'd be a bit bit depressed and angry. So keep away.
Yeah, so you didn't, and then all of a sudden, I found that things were chafing because we spend all this money on our skin and our face, and all about collagen and pumping this. But you know, when we're small, young girls, we have very plump vulvas, and then as we get older, the vulva it gets thinner and thinner, and it's, you know, and that is the truth of it, and it does. And then as it gets thinner and thinner, it sort of opens, and I found that my jeans were chafing when I went to the gym. It chafed. But there was nothing out there, so I decided to make everything vegan or natural, not in plastic, in sugarcane husk. And I was doing this in 2017. I made a whole menopause range. So it was like called the Blossom Love, the balm. Then I did a lubricant, of course, because I didn't want my teenage kid, well, I've got one child, but she has lots of friends, to come in and see a lubricant sitting on the side that just was like a well-known one that we all probably know in the UK. Maybe not so sorry in the US, so in case I lose you here. But it's like, you know, Durex and all this, and it's brightly coloured. I just wanted something that, you know, you looked at it looked pretty, and you would not put two and two together. So it was everything that I needed, but I couldn't believe that there was nothing out there, and no, you know, there wasn't. I couldn't walk into a chemist and go, right, I need some lube, I need this, and then a Meno blend. I made a Meno blend, which was every vitamin and every superfood. So you had maca, you had green tea extract, you had chlorella, you had Akaya, MSM, everything, and it was £1 a day, because I wanted to make everything that I did was how I used to look at my mum. My mum used to do her weekly shopping, and she used to get given, you know, used to have a housekeeping, and I just wanted her to be able to put, any woman to be able to put that in their basket, but without their husband or their partners or anyone saying, you spent this amount or you spent this amount. So everything was at a price point that was available to the masses, and
that's what you start, which is brilliant. So I'm going to come back a bit about your products. I know Minnie wants to jump in, and she's got some thoughts.
Sorry,
so it's all right. So it's all right. Everybody does. We all three of us do.
That's fine. I just wanted to say one thing here. You see, when women have access to everything you talked about, but menopause just doesn't come to upper middle class or rich women globally. It comes to everybody. So what about women who don't even know that this is happening and what they need to do? They don't have a support system. So it comes back to, when we speak about this, menopause, and you know, I'm really thankful to all the men whom I know, hopefully, who have called in, because it's nothing to be ashamed to talk about this. This is not, actually, one thing I want to say as a healthcare professional, this is not a medical issue, ladies and gentlemen. It is a part of life. Just as a woman starts her period, she has menopause. And Meg, you talked about the perimenopausal period. It varies between women. It depends on factors. And again, let me tell you, there is no textbook answer to how you can address this. This comes with experience, but some of us may have a few symptoms, the others don't. And a lot of times, you know why women don't take a day off from work? Because if they go to the boss and say, I'm having a hot flash, I'm perimenopausal, or I'm really having issues with menopause, then immediately they are scared they will be replaced by a younger woman. Because, you know, I'm sorry to use the term, menopause is not considered sexy for a woman.
No, I want to ask you something here. I'm going to butt in now, because one of the things I want to talk about is the difference in cultures, particularly globally. You've worked all over the world. You work in India, you work in Africa, and in all these different countries, the menopause is treated very differently. We've talked about that as well. In some cultures, it is an honourable state to go through the menopause and become the wise woman, which is what I'm always talking about, because it's a passage of time that should be celebrated, actually, and honoured for the women to move into the next stage of the sort of matriarchal wise woman stage. But in other places, they are thought of as, you know, they've had their use, they can't bear children, and they're sort of thrown on the heap. What's your experience, Minnie, as you've worked in all these countries and different cultures?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lynn. As you say, it's definitely culture. I have found, I'm just going to, you know, I'm Indian origin and I'm proud of my Indian heritage, Asian heritage. When I just want to talk about something personal, my mom passed away 2 years ago. She would have been 86. She was a brilliant woman. She was a French professor. My dad was a nice man, but he could not understand. She started, Lynn, Meg, you said you started menopause early. My mom was 44 when she started menopause. And she really went through hell. She had night sweats. Now I'm thinking about it. And, you know, she could not cope with her work. And she was a very slim woman. And then she started gaining weight, you know, in the abdomen. That's one thing. I mean, you know, whatever you want to do, you try so hard unless you go under a knife, which a lot of people don't. They don't have the access to and the means. And that really made her upset. She couldn't go for work. She loved what she was doing. She didn't get enough support. I remember, you know, my sister and I, we used to see her when she was cooking. She'd have the fan on in the kitchen. She'd be perspiring in the midst of winter. Of course, there was no snow, but the culture. And I remember when she went to her gynecologist, she said, oh, it's you have to do this. Maybe I'll give you hormones. So she never had support. Fast forward for 2 years, she just quit her job she loved. And then she went back. So I find that it's not discussed. So again, but there are some cultures where you talk about it. And again, coming now to COVID, the health systems are in a state of collapse in so many parts of the world because of the onslaught. So do you think a woman has the support she needs? No, that's why all of us who have gone through menopause, going through menopause, this forum is so good because we're not ashamed to talk about it. And I would like to, you know, say that to my male colleagues and friends, please be supportive because this is a very difficult time for a woman. It doesn't matter if she's American, if she's British, she's African, yes, or Asian. There are different ways the cultures are. Some cultures are more supportive. As you said, the woman has a break housework because maybe it's her daughter or daughters-in-law, if it's a joint family, but she needs the support. Like, I should be able to go, or any woman, go tell my boss or any, you know, any man in my life or any of my friends, you know what, I'm really feeling down because of menopause. But it doesn't mean it's reducing any woman's sexuality, because that is the thing. Men need to understand that.
I am so glad you brought that in. And there's two things. I want to move back, and the word sexuality comes up. I'm definitely moving back to Meg. But what I wanted to say is to any of the people on the Zoom call, if you want to start writing Q&A, any questions that you've got for either Minnie or Meg, about 7:45, I'm just looking at the time, at about 10 to 7:45, before we finish, we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you want to start writing some questions in, we'll be coming back to you towards the end of the talk. So Meg, sexuality. Yay.
Yeah.
So I know that's something, again, you've been incredibly honest about. And I'm with you every bit of the way. I mean, it's whether you're in relationship or not in relationship, we are still sexual women. Obviously, for some women, when they get the menopause, their libido goes right down. For some, it doesn't. We have to look at things. You've talked about lube. In your book, you talk about vibrators. You talk about the importance of women masturbating, even regardless of whether they've got a partner or not. And I think that we need to talk far more about that. I just want to quickly say that I put an event on called What Women Want in '95, just before the Beijing conference at the South Bank. And we had a whole area at the festival hall where we had different teachers of sexuality getting the women there to express the things that they enjoyed and things they didn't. And for me and for all the women, it was like the first time we felt safe enough to express our sexuality. That was 95. It's now 2020. I mean, has it changed a lot? I think it has to a degree. What do you think, Meg? I mean, this is something you
Well,
talk about a lot.
I'd love to say yes, it has. And Lynne, you were always the pioneer and always bringing it up front. But you know, at that moment when you have and you talk about it, then it's great, and then it gets lost again. And I think it got lost again because for me, I had no idea that one of the symptoms or one of the things was going to happen to me, that I lost my libido, but I didn't lose the intimacy, which was a hard one because I still wanted to be intimate with my partner, as you know, have cuddles and you know, be naked in bed and you know, and stroke and cuddle and kiss and everything. But when you're with a red-blooded male, should I say, that when you start at night and you just want that, then that just turns into let's get it on. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I don't want to get it on. I just want to be held and touched, and then that becomes turned into an argument, and then 2 hours later he's in the spare room, and then the next day you're not talking, and it's like, but you know, how do you explain that I'm really sorry, but you know, I you know, the oxytocin or the testosterone, everything is just not in me anymore, and I'm not feeling this, but I'm still in love with you, and I still want to touch you, and I still want to cuddle you and everything. But then it's just total rejection and rejection, and then after rejection becomes the argument, and in the end it's easier to say, let's just
call it a day.
Go our separate ways.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's what happened to me, which was very sad, but you know, it's I'm just there with me and Ziggy, my dog now. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, if you hear any strange noises my end, it's my dog Noodle on the floor. He always decides at the worst moment to be noisy and making coughing and spluttering and wanting attention. So yeah, I mean, there is a lot of there are a lot of people, a lot of women of a certain age who've got their dogs, and sometimes they're our best friends because they are there unconditionally all the time. But anyway, it's an interesting. But I mean, it is about understanding and not beating ourselves up. But as our bodies change, as we become menopausal, our sexuality changes too, and we can accommodate that. I mean, medically, Minnie, what would you say on that whole area of sexuality? Because obviously, I mean, Meg's just touched on it, that the whole area of our vagina can get more sensitive, our hormones are shifting, and we go into quite a different state of being than we have been before on that level too. I got very sexual in my menopause, I may say. Possibly because I just come out of a 25-year-old marriage. I'm in LA, so I had a lot of fun when I was going through it. Never lost it at all.
I want to talk a little bit about the medical angle without making it too technical. Yes, we go through changes because of the changes in the hormones. But what I would suggest is vaginal thinning, and if there's any intermittent spotting, you should immediately go to see your physician. Like, even though you're menopausal, like if you think it's like, yes, it's not a period, it's better to be overcautious. The other thing about sexuality, I would just like to say that once your body gets used to it, Lynne, you said something, and thank you for sharing that experience. Women, at least the women I have talked to, you know, who've been my patients or other conversations I've had, they definitely will have a healthy sexual relationship and, you know, rejoice that they are not on the shelf because they cannot reproduce because they are not having their period, they're not ovulating. But that being said, I just want one word of caution, because I'm putting on my physician hat here. Even though a woman is perimenopausal, sometimes she can get pregnant. You have to be careful about that. So if you don't want a surprise menopause baby, you need to make sure you use contraception. And the other thing is, after menopause, you might think, oh yeah, I don't need my pill, I don't need my shot. but you need to practice, have barrier methods of protection. Because there was a study released by the World Health Organization a couple of years ago, which said that menopausal women who did not use barrier methods of contraception had an increased risk of sexually transmitted diseases. So I just wanted to get that out there again. And also, I think I very briefly want to talk for a few seconds about hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
I'm not promoting it. I'm not against it. This is a conversation a woman needs to have with her provider. Go to your primary care physician and then your gynecologist and a reproductive endocrinologist who can help you. But again, here is the thing. This all is catering to those women who have the access. So what do we do for women who don't have access, who cannot afford it, who don't have insurance? Everybody is not privileged to live in the United Kingdom or Canada where you have the National Health Scheme, NHS. But here, even in the US, we have so many people who don't have access. So I think what needs to come out is we need to have some kind of mechanisms in place which really offers support to these people. And, to say that if they need some kind of access, I mean, so many of us who are healthcare providers, we have immunization camps. I think I just got this idea. We need to have a menopause camp where we have people from all walks of life coming into health, because you know what? It's only a woman who can understand how another woman feels when she's going through menopause. And definitely we need our male colleagues, our male partners, our male friends, our fathers, brothers, everybody to say, yes, this is what the women are going through. What can we do to help you? At least it's just a word to say, I understand you're going through it. It's okay. You're still fabulous. A positive encouragement goes a long way.
But in all fairness, I must bring up, I mean, I'd be the least to bring up the gender defense system here, but men also go through a bit of a menopause too,
Yes.
don't they? So I think we're not always aware of it, and perhaps we're not always so sympathetic either when they get a bit moody or their testosterone, it means that they're not getting an erection, it goes down and they're not getting an erection and things. So I think both men and women should get educated on what happens to their bodies, each other's bodies, and be sympathetic, because, it's like that midlife crisis that we always joke about. You see these men going off with younger girls and all the rest of it. There's something behind that, which is actually...
I totally agree. And also the other bit is talking about basically with the NHS, nothing in the UK is on private healthcare. And also testosterone, which is probably one of the things that you were probably talking about, to help with the with getting your libido going. Basically, is not available on the NHS, by the way. So you have to be referred to an NHS clinic. I think we only have 1920 in the UK at the moment, so it's quite. It's a long wait list for this, and also we only know that if it doesn't work after 6 months, then it doesn't work. So that's why I'm always talking about masturbation, because it's like, it's like going to the gym. You have to keep doing it to keep it going. So if you stop and you let it go for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and then you're just like, oh, well, I'd rather be snuggled up watching Netflix, reading my book, being in my flannel pajamas, then of course it's not going to be there. You have to keep it going.
And in your book, you've got some very, very good advice. I really, really, Meg has just gone from the screen. Okay. So you've got some fantastic advice about what to use in terms of sex toys and lubricants, and what's good for you and what's bad for you. And as I was reading it today, I was remembering that actually when I wrote Grow in 2004, I was talking about the sort of sex toys to have, and it was like unheard of to be talking about it in those days.
I know.
I mean, I'm not saying that because I know what you.
No, I love it because you were just so there always.
I used to go around to everybody saying, but you have to have a vibrator. You have to have a vibrator. It's really important. And, you know, and some of my friends were like, no, my kids might find them or whatever it is, you know. So, so I mean, great stuff in here. Let's move on to HRT because we are moving through this fantastic conversation quite quickly.
I might have to get my charger because I think it was telling me I'm out of the charger.
Okay, look at your beautiful. Okay, we'll keep talking. So look at that gorgeous house. So anyway, let's talk, Minnie, about HRT as well, because it seems that in this country, I'm not on it. I was on it once for a day, and it was early days, and I didn't feel safe, and I don't like taking those pharmaceutical pills, so I stopped taking it, and I've not needed it, or I don't feel I need it. But what is your opinion on it? Because it seems that most people are going that way now. Also for these hormonal pills, they're not pills, are they? They're patches and all kinds of things. So what's your feelings on that as a doctor, as well as a woman?
So what I wanted to say is, again, yes, it's come a long way, Lynn, since when you first started your menopause, because now you have the bioidentical hormone therapy.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. But again, what I would recommend is that I'm a physician, but I would not prescribe the bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, because I would refer a patient to a reproductive endocrinologist who has experience. And the other thing is, this needs to be tapered. Suppose you start with a cream or a patch, you have to go back. You need to get checkup, so that this is the thing. It's a double-edged sword. You have to make sure it helps you, and you don't take an over medication or under,
so you constantly have to stay on top of it.
Yes, you have to go for that, and you cannot make, and even there are people who have a lot of soya, because soya again is naturally occurring estrogen, but you don't want to overload your system with soya because there are other issues. You may have intermittent spotting. So before you start anything, so it's great that we are talking about menopause, but a word of caution: always discuss with your provider, and if you have access. And for those you don't, now everybody has cell phones, so I think we need to have messages going out there that how does it help in different languages. Like, we go for a mammogram, so talk to somebody about menopause. But again, HRT, personally for me, I took it for some time and I was not happy with it. And what really helped me is yoga.
That's
because
great.
It gave me a very positive approach.
That's brilliant.
And also, I would recommend, while we're on that, while we wait for Meg.
No, Meg's here. Meg's here.
You have to do exercises.
Yeah. Can I stop you now, because Meg is here, and we also haven't talked about the importance of meditation, like yoga, which is very, very important. I know you are an HRT. We've got lots of questions pouring in and not a lot of time to answer them. So can I start giving you some of the questions now? Unless, Meg, do you want to add anything on HRT as we just get them ready?
Well, with HRT, for me, I thought, it's hormone replacement therapy. There's lots of different ones. There's synthetics, there's bioidenticals, there's body identicals. There's a lot out there. Also, as you were saying before, there's a lot of millions and millions of women who can't even, that's not even available to. And that is something that we should also think about doing, because we were talking about this at the beginning, getting across to all these millions of women that can't even have a conversation about it. So they haven't even got the choice about even asking about any of this.
Yeah.
So this really makes me gets my back up as well. For me, I'm quite lucky, right? So for me, I did body identicals, which is derived from the yam. It is, it's basically made in a laboratory, and it worked for me.
All right.
Bioidenticals, I tried everything. I did synthetic, bio, whatever.
So basically, everybody's got to really try and find what works for their body.
Yeah,
so I'm going to.
And the reason that for me, a big one was for me, is that I was diagnosed with osteoporosis, which my mum died of a few years ago. So I was diagnosed with this, and one of the main reasons one of the main symptoms is 1 out of 2 women in the Western world will have osteoporosis, the silent deadly killer. I, at 49, was diagnosed with a DEXA scan with osteoporosis. Now, they wanted to give me all this Western medicine. Didn't do this Western medicine. Instead, I did this estrogen. I put 6 pumps a day, and for 1 year, I did weight-bearing exercises, and I put on this estrogen, and within a year of doing it, I was out of being in the red of osteoporosis on a DEXA scan, and I was in the border of osteopenia, which is quite amazing considering that it was never seen as prevention. HRT, hormone replacement, bioidenticals was not seen as a prevention.
Okay.
And this is where I'm trying to work in the UK, as it is a prevention.
Okay. I'm going to stop. Because I know you've got to leave at 8, and we've got 9 minutes and loads of questions.
Yeah.
So unless you want to go over them, I'd like to start off with Sarah Maxwell's question. Sarah Maxwell has been she's absolutely brilliant fitness and well-being trainer and teacher for the last 30 years. And all the way through, she's found that the majority of the women she's taught are terrified of their vaginas. And she was sacked from a large gym company because she encouraged women to look and touch their own vaginas privately, not in the class. And the final straw was when she ordered them vibrators for their homework. And as she dressed down the Royal College of Midwives, she said they was making it difficult by encouraging pelvic floor exercises. So what is the question, Sarah? Okay, so all right. So that was her experience. So I'm not sure if she's got a question there. Have we got some questions rather? But Maggie Kelly has got a what?
I think what she did was amazing. I mean, how many
amazing.
women actually look at their vaginas, actually sit in a mirror and look at their vaginas?
No.
I mean,
and that's something you talk about in the book as well. You talk about the importance of looking at your vaginas.
And it's very important to look and see, because it actually changes. And if you don't know how it changes, we all talk about, feeding our breast, the different whatever, but do we look down at vaginal atrophy and, there's, 5 gynecological cancers down there. I mean, it's important for us to pay attention to every part of our body.
Okay, so we've got a question from Maggie Kelly, which I'm going to give to both of you, but I'll start off with you, Minnie. She says, if there was one major change we could make, whether in law or societally, which would make the most positive difference to women going through the menopause, what would it be? So, Minnie, briefly, what would you say is the...
Well, thank you. I was just looking at the question, and I think it's talk about it, have conversations, and use social media to get the message across that menopause is not medical, it's natural, it's a way of life, but you need to, if you have the access to go, and maybe we need to have policies where we talk about this more openly, that I think is important at various levels.
So talking much more openly.
Multifactorial.
Yes. And Meg, what about you? The one thing that you would say, which I suspect might be the same answer, if we could make it in law even.
Exactly the same as what you're saying, Minnie. I just believe that, that what I'm doing and why I'm doing this is that it just becomes the most norm of topics, and it's basically every woman, everyone will have a chance. Like the minute you're pregnant, and you're somewhere, it's have a ginger biscuit, sit down, at work, it's got to be mandatory. It has to just be a part of our life, our conversations, and it won't happen in our years, but hopefully in our kids' years. And
well, that's one of the other questions. One of the other questions that's come in is, have you shared your experiences with your daughters?
Yes, I have a lovely daughter. I have shared my experiences with her, with my nieces, and even sometimes with my medical students and residents when they ask me. You need to prepare them for what they may have.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to shy away from. That's it. It's nothing to be ashamed of discussing this.
No, I agree.
So Jane Washington would like to ask you, Meg, about the calcium levels and being postmenopausal. Are you still vegan, and how do you look after your calcium levels as a vegan? I presume she means no dairy.
I do take different milks that I take, like oat milk, cashew milk. They're all fortified. with, but I do take calcium tablets, but it's not like bundling full of like calcium tablets. I make sure that I have a very clean, very leafy, very green diet, which has lots of magnesium in, which is lots of vitamin D. It's just about having a clean, good diet.
Yeah.
It's not just, don't just crunch away loads of calcium tablets. That's not going to make any difference. But being a vegan, I mean, you can look up on Google all day long about how to find extra sources of calcium.
Okay. And one last question before we start winding up is for both of you. For women who don't have access to private healthcare, what would be your budget-friendly tips for feeling well and happy during the menopause? Minnie,
Yeah. Could you just repeat that, please?
For women who don't have access to private healthcare, what would be your budget-friendly tips for feeling well and happy during the menopause?
Well, thank you. That's a difficult question. I'll try my best to answer it. I think most people have, this is why I said social media, they have access to different apps. And again, full disclosure, no company is paying me to talk about the various apps. So a way of communicating and to have support groups to say you're not alone, especially in this day and age, even though we are thousands of miles away. Meg, I think I've made a connection with you and Lynne. So I look forward to working with you on this journey. So I think it's important to say that we are there. It needs to be in different languages and easy access. And a big shout out to my physician colleagues and nursing colleagues, a request, devote some of your time to counsel these women. And we need to reach out to, to see how can we have like a free screening. This is what I said, it's important. And the last thing I just want to say, Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 3 is health for all at all ages. So women's health, we need to consider, this is a part of our health. We need to talk about menopause because health is a complete state of physical, social, and mental well-being.
Oh, yeah. So, Meg, this specifically says if you don't have access to private healthcare, which presumably you don't have a big budget, what is your budget-friendly tips for feeling well and happy during the menopause? And I'd like to add mine after you've added yours.
So all I'm going to say is that in the UK, no private healthcare covers any menopause whatsoever. Just so you know that.
Yeah.
So you're not covered whatsoever. So anything that you're going to go through in the menopause is not covered by any healthcare in the UK. So I set up my app called Menopause, which has a whole community of women. It is in 5 languages. We have Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French,
English.
What else? English, yeah. And basically that covers more than half the population.
Brilliant.
The women on there, they speak to each other all day long. So one woman might say, oh my God, I haven't had a period for 6 months. I can't answer every DM because I'm still a small company. But on there, I can look and get a smile on my face when 19 women have all of a sudden in different languages have got back to her. And they are speaking. And that's why I did my app in all those languages, because we cover South America and we cover everything. As long as we have Spanish, Portuguese,
isn't that fantastic?
And that's why I did it.
So it really is down to women supporting women, as you know, with my whole Seed network, which I've just launched online this week, Seed Hub Club.
Yeah.
And all the work that I've been doing for years, it's about women supporting women. That's why we're here tonight. And I am so grateful for you coming in and talking about your knowledge and experiences. I think we've covered a huge amount of areas and I cannot recommend enough for you to try and find a copy of Meg Mathews' book while it's sold out, but you will get it.
It's back on Amazon.
Oh, thank God, it's back on Amazon. We also will have it in the Seed store, and Emboldened, which we already have in the Seed store. You can do no better. And I'm delighted to announce, while we're all online, that we had some giveaways as competition prizes tonight, and the winners of them are Angelina Riabi, Louise Allen, Vicky Earle, and Jane Shelbourne Barrow. So I'm not sure if they're all listening. Jane Shelbourne Barrow, who lives in my town of Wincanton, can pop in and pick hers up tomorrow. I'm going to send Angelina Riabi your fabulous book because she's an amazing woman, Angelina. She's in a wheelchair. She does incredible support for people in the NHS. She's been all through COVID, has been cooking hot meals and delivering them to the hospitals in South East London. She's an extraordinary woman. So I'm delighted to be able to send her that. And I'm also delighted to be sending Louise Allen, who is a healer herself, a copy of this book, and Vicky Earle likewise, who's one of our wonderful members of the Seed community, which is growing by the day. So I'm so grateful. So we're going to put this, we're going to archive this, we're going to have it on YouTube, we're going to have it on your site, Meg, we're going to give it copy to you, Padmini, for New York. And I know this conversation is just the start of an ongoing conversation between all of us, and the Seed members who are on the Zoom call are going to stay on now, and we're going to have a conversation between ourselves of our own experiences. My experience is life goes on after the menopause. It's never been better for me. I'm 72. I'm very happy. I'm not on anything except what you talked about, which natural foods, healthy life, lots of spirituality, good sex, and a lovely little dog to go for walks with.
Love it, Liz.
Love you too, darling. You come down and see me very, very soon. Yeah, lovely to see you both. And Padmini, thank you so much for coming in from New York. Appreciate it so much. Love you all. We're going to stay. So the Zoom people, please stay on. We'll say goodbye to everybody else on Facebook and YouTube. And we'll talk very, very soon. God bless. Bye. Love you too, darling. Bye.